we've done the process. We've found out. We found our professor. We entered our lab the first day, and then the big question is here from the audience: what about the language? Can you? How do you manage with the language?
Personally, I found it quite challenging. I think one of my tips to people that are looking for PhDs in Germany and are seriously considering doing a PhD in Germany would be to learn German beforehand. You don't have to be fluent, but at least basic German. I think Munich is a special case in Germany where it's more conservative and people really do prefer to speak German over English, although it obviously depends on the environment. In the working environment, it's not been a problem at all. Everyone speaks English. All of the scientific communication, presentations, writing, everything is done in English. But if you're going out for furniture shopping to looking for apartments or houses, that can be quite difficult if you don't speak basic German, is what I found.
Yeah, so now I as a non-German person, but I came to Germany 10 years ago, I can also say that, yes, I mean, in Germany, you can get along without German, yeah. But from what I observe also, if you don't start with learning a little bit of German right in the beginning, it doesn't have to be before you come, but if you're willing to catch up, it definitely helps. And it definitely helps because you never know what happens. I mean, in science, if you continue in academia, you will be fine with English, and your group will speak English, and the programs are international, and you will have a big group of international students. So you'll be fine without German. You can really survive. Also here we are in a very academic city, and actually, so scientists do get along. They're fine without speaking German. But then you notice that if you have not started, to take maybe a few people you speak German with, or it really becomes hard. After a year, you don't start learning German anymore. You get your habits, you get around. And then the big question comes toward the end of the PhD, where certain students then say, like, well, maybe I would like to stay in Germany. Maybe I would like to kind of find a position, still in Germany. And then suddenly it becomes like a really big argument, yeah. So, and then of course also employers will just ask, like, well, how come you've been 3 years in Germany and you still don't speak a word? How can that be? And what I personally see with our students that works really well is that if they actually find a few people to practice their German, however, it can be very limited, but it's actually good to find some people. It can be technicians in the group, it could be the local bakery, but that you just find your habit of speaking, practicing German. Our PhD students also organize themselves a tandem system of exchanging languages, so they're actually happy if the Spanish-speaking students who come in actually share their knowledge, and that you actually then practice German with the other partner. And so there are many possibilities for that. There are courses. Most graduate schools actually also really offer courses to learn German. I personally think that's a really good thing, but I think you learn more language by talking to people.
I've got one suggestion. That is, if you look for a laboratory where most people speak English, or all of them, just have a look at the composition. If it's international, then you can be sure that it will be in English. If 90% is German, then maybe not. You will easily find out there are still a few laboratories around. I'm always surprised that have a majority of German people, but this is a minority and it gets less and less. But you can simply find out.
But you might say that you would want a laboratory with German people in order to learn German. I mean, that will be the big thing that you carry away from a stay in Germany, is that you actually know that language, which is a very, very big language, and might I add, a beautiful language as well. It would be a real pity not to learn it, if you ask me. So you can get by without German, but it's highly recommended. And should we say, it's not as difficult as it sounds in the beginning. Or what do you think?
Well,
Swedish and Flemish are pretty close. It's it's not impossible.
it's definitely not impossible. And as has been already mentioned before, that especially if you're in a grad school program, or even if you aren't in a grad school program, there are so many opportunities to learn the language. And I would certainly say that if you're going to move here and live here for more than even 3-4 years, then it's a good amount of time to learn a new language. It doesn't have to be instantly. You can obviously take it gradually. And it would certainly be a shame to not learn the language because, again, it's another skill to add onto your CV. So it can be the German language is a bit difficult, I would say, grammatically, but it's not impossible.
No, and
Yeah.
my personal experience is that Germans are actually incredibly tolerant to grammatical errors. It really
Yes.
doesn't matter. It's not something that will cut you off from conversations that you didn't really get the genitive behind the preposition correct.
One of the funny things is actually that the grammar, even between the different regions in Germany, you're in Bavaria or you're up in the north, the dialects are actually happen to be quite different. Yeah, and if you think grammar is tough and you have to learn der, die, das, and whether that's a dative or accusative or those kind of things, actually some of the dialects put it the other way around. So that's also a thing where yeah, it's not so critical. You'll get along with the minimum, and you don't really need to know so much of the theory behind it. I learned that with my children now. So the theory. I speak German. Yeah, I picked it up by talking to people, and then you learn the school German at some point later.
Maybe one should add, if somebody really doesn't like learning languages, you can definitely live without any other language but English. That is possible. Only if you stay for a long time, like you for a professorship or something like this, then you should definitely need some German for administrative reasons, for example. But you can, if you really desperately want to go to Germany without learning German, you can survive. That's an exception.
I think that's a good conclusion. And if even if you're scared, and if you get scared by this quite considerable grammar for a British speaker, then once you're over that, there's nothing to it. The rest is really easy, and you don't even need the scary grammar bit. So I think that could maybe put some people at peace on the language issue.